I watched the Arnold documentary on Netflix, and I definitely want to talk about that. I think there's a lot of the obvious things I'll mention that probably inspired a lot of you. It definitely inspired me just about willpower and vision for what you want in your life and pushing forward despite the obstacles, which I think when you're having a time when you have a goal and you're stuck, it can be important to reach out to those sources of inspiration, books or documentaries or whatever, people that you know, and really soak up those stories so you can have the fuel for your journey. And I'm reading a book on Helen Keller right now as well for kind of some fuel on that. But when I was younger and I was coming up through junior high and high school, I loved the markets. And I think I've told the story on a different podcast, but I got hooked by my junior high gym teacher about just I was watching him kind of just run his stock portfolio and not really pay attention to the class, and I thought, wow, this is insane. This guy is making money just playing a game. That's what I want to do. I don't want to have to do real work and be a real adult and just slog it out. That sounds no fun at all. So I got into the market and I loved the puzzle and just was, it's all I wanted to do, just nonstop. Get your classes done early so you could study with all the other people who are doing their schoolwork, but I was just looking at the market, reading trading books, looking at charts and things like that, and it just kind of compounded. And I was telling people I wanted to trade S&P futures when that was just laughable. I grew up in a town in northern Wisconsin, and I went to school in University of Wisconsin. They just basically laughed at me. I tried to get into these securities analysis programs because it was the closest thing I could find to trading, even though it was sort of bullshit and not really related. It was teaching you to be an analyst or an employee, like pretty much most all schooling does. Not that there's not valuable things to pick up in schooling, but I found a lot of my value in just studying people who are good at stuff and following what I wanted to do and then learning that way. And if that was through school, great. If it's a specific craft or something, fine, but just didn't necessarily do a lot for me. And so anyways, I was doing all this trading stuff, and I'm obviously on the way, just like the Arnold story for my act one of my career, my life. It was hard at times. It was just brutal setbacks where you just didn't want to even get out of bed, and it was so tough. And I know a lot of you listening have had that and are going through that or have gone through that. How could you not if you stick around in this world? But it's equally as exciting as the other side of it when it does work out, and you try to smooth that out when you get older and you have wisdom. And I was just talking to a trader recently about how he loves this market and his grandfather is always on the wrong side of things, and we were just discussing how when you've been around for a long time, you go through crashes and huge drawdowns, and you have big winning streaks that are ended with equally bad losing streaks, and you experience all this stuff. You just do if you're around long enough. You can't avoid it. And it changes you because you start to see things a little different way, and sometimes that can hurt you and make it harder for you to take advantage of the same stuff that you would have 10 years ago or when you were younger, because you know how deep that cut can be when you get caught on the wrong side of things. And I think getting older and getting smarter and wiser with your trades and your money is great, but then also preserving some of that curiosity and that ability to do those things that you did when you were younger and you were a little bit more fearless is also super important, to be playful. So I'm getting a little off my message, but I just wanted to throw that in. But back to the Arnold comparison and then some of my stuff. So I had that, my willpower was so strong back when I started that there's no plan B. There was just plan A. It was get out of school, figure out how to get a job in trading. Doesn't matter. Learn from the best people you can. Do anything you can. Don't live as light as you can. Nothing mattered but learning it. There was no second anything. And that was my outlook. I never even thought about it not working out or not making it or anything like that. And of course, if you started when you're older with kids or whatever, like I am now, it's tougher because you have other people to worry about. So those things they're easier when you're starting earlier. It doesn't mean you can't do it later on, but those we have different emotions, different things that come up at different parts of our career. So in our life in general. So what I'm getting at with this whole documentary is I found it so inspiring that he had one big thing after another. So at first it was like, I want to go to America so bad. I had a shitty upbringing. My dad was physically abusive. I'm proud to be from Austria, but I just want to go to America. So he finally gets to America, and then it's the interest in bodybuilding and weightlifting and stuff like that, which was bigger in America than it was where he was. So he started winning some European competitions, got out of the military, and then ended up becoming a legendary bodybuilder and pushed even further and started becoming an actor. And then that was super painful for him because he didn't know anything about being an actor. And I don't want to spoil the whole thing for you, but long story short is the guy had this mission laid out where he wanted to do all these things. And even at a young age, he knew, I want to go to America. I'm into bodybuilding. I want to be an actor. And then eventually it was, I want to be a politician too, which I think he actually thought about that early on as well, which is kind of crazy that you'd have so much of your life thought through. And I had that for trading. And I know a lot of you have it for whatever else that you're doing. I think so, but the main point of this podcast is very different than any of this stuff. It's what do you do when you're in a sticky, gummy place where you don't know what to do? Maybe you had a really successful first act of your career. Maybe you're younger and you don't know what you want to do, but you think you might want to trade or do something different. Or maybe it's something in between where you're trying to reignite something that used to be there and the fire doesn't burn quite as much and you're stuck. So Arnold, when he was trying to act, he got stuck for 5 years where his movies sucked and he wasn't very good at it and no one was calling him back. I wish they would have talked more about that because that's what I really want to know about. Like what was his disposition, his outlook, his day-to-day like during those 5 years when everything just did not seem like it was working. Because it's easy, and he might have been great. I'm not saying he wasn't, but it's easy after the fact to say, yeah, we had a lot of ups and downs, but I always believed, and maybe that's true. But a lot of times when you're going through stuff, it's easy to get stuck in what you're going through and not and have a hard time seeing to the end of it. And it's especially difficult when you don't know what the hell you're going to do next. Like, what is it that makes you excited? And I remember having a lot of friends back in college, and they'd see me so interested in trading, and they said, that's great, but I have no idea anything that I'm interested in as much as you're interested in trading. And that's a problem for me because how am I supposed to outwork people or have willpower when I don't know where to put it? And I think sometimes just exploring that and figuring out how to get through that stuff is, I don't see that talked about as much. And as much as Arnold's amazing, I think I'm so inspired by everything I saw. And I think when I have something again that I have the willpower or another act or whatever happens, I'm going to remember a lot of that inspiration I got from watching that and stuff, even from myself when I was younger, about how fired up you get and how you can make these goals and you can visualize it and you're basically willing it to happen. And it will happen when you have that attitude and that willpower. But right now where I'm in my life is I still am super grateful about markets and freedom they offer, but my fire for the same exact thing I used to do is not burning as bright as it used to. Doesn't mean that I don't want to trade or I'm not grateful for it, but leaping out of bed every day and wanting the weekends to get canceled because I just want to watch the market is not how I feel anymore. But I used to feel that way for a really long time. And I might feel that way again at some point. But sometimes what got you to the one place isn't what gets you to the next place. So for me, it might very well be within markets, but there's going to be another act that's going to be a little bit different somehow. And I don't quite know how yet. So when I see all this stuff about his willpower, tremendous goal setting, it's very exciting, but it also isn't a direct help to where I am right now, if that makes sense. Because I don't quite have the laser. I don't know where to put the laser. I mean, it used to be so easy where to put it. And now it's kind of like, well, you can do a lot of things. So what's the thing that you really want to do the most? And where do you call to the most? And I think markets, just like he still works out his whole life and he still is doing movies, even though he's not really fully committed to either, I'll always be in the market and using that to make money and to enjoy the puzzle. It's always going to be there. But is it there to the extent it used to be? Just like he said after winning, and now I'm not comparing my success to him at all or anything like that, but he said after you have, whatever Mr. Olympia titles he won, time to move on. And he did it in box office, and he had big hits, and he had things that worked out in movies. Okay, time to move on. And he's doing a new series now on Netflix, but it's largely not the centerpiece of his life anymore. And politics happened for him, and he's out of that. And I think he would be back in that if he was a natural born citizen, but that's another story. So I don't quite know what it is for him now. I have to actually finish a little bit of the third episode to see, but the takeaway here is I don't think you should feel bad if you're a little confused on where to put your willpower, because that's a huge part of life, figuring that out. I don't have the exact answer to how to do that, but I think I have some ways to not do it because I've tried a lot of ways to not do it. Don't force things. When you're tired and beat up and you don't want to do something, there's probably a better option. It doesn't mean you shouldn't work, but there's obviously a better way to balance yourself. That's yourself telling yourself something in a way, and you have to obey that. And when that fire and passion comes hard and heavy, it will be so easy for you to take action. Your energy will be unlimited, even on lower sleep and stuff like that. I remember I used to sleep 6 hours a night. I had to have no problem getting in there every day. So things change. I also have two little kids, a lot more responsibilities, and a lot of that's a little bit harder place in life to than when you're just worrying about yourself, which will change for me too. So there's other things that play into that. But as we roll into these other things, we have to spread ourselves out a little bit, and it's just part of life. I think is to find what's gonna let you up next, and nothing is gonna stay the same way forever, and there's gonna be changes. So for me, I feel like that's been happening for me in some form since 2015. But I've been trading all through it, different kinds. I've tried so many different kinds of trading to stimulate like a new growth path, and some of them I had some success with, some of them I didn't, some of them I had like kind of in the middle. And what I'm more looking for was another way that I could really go full throttle and get excited. And I had that in pockets. I did that in crypto for a while. I got into earning strategies for a while. And those things, I'll use those tools again when I need to. So you never give up things that you learned. Like Arnold's not giving, he still knows how to put together a killer workout program and do the diet, get in shape. He knows how to play an action hero. You're not gonna give up the things that you're good at, but do you want to go hard all in on them again when you've already kind of, it's like, sometimes I feel like it's like going back to your hometown and seeing all your friends and you're just kind of like, yeah, it's not the same as it used to be. Life has to move forward. There needs to be an evolution somehow to this. Maybe it's a small tweak. Maybe it's using a skill set in a different way. I don't really know, but that's a lot of the stuff that came up for me when I watched the movie. And I thought, how do I take this and apply it to my life right now? And it's like, well, hammering on willpower is not necessarily where I'm at, even though I love that. And I think that was a huge thing that I used in the beginning. So I'll let everyone just chew on that. And sometimes people email me when something connects with them. I love that. So if anybody feels that way, please email me, and I enjoy reading those emails. But hope you guys find your way, and I'm going to continue to do the same.